Let me tell you something about the seasons that frustrate you, the ones that make you restless, the ones that make you look at your life and wonder if something has gone terribly wrong. Those seasons have a way of wearing masks. They never introduce themselves honestly. They never walk into your life and say, I am here to strengthen you. I am here to prepare you. I am here to prepare you. No, they arrive quietly, wrapped in inconvenience, dressed as disappointment, disguised as confusion. And because they do not look like progress, you call them setbacks. Because they do not feel like victory, you call them failure. Because they do not resemble what you hoped for, you assume they have no value. That is how easily the mind can be deceived. You see, we have been conditioned to associate goodness with ease. When things move smoothly, we believe we are on the right path. When doors open quickly, we believe life is cooperating. But the moment resistance appears, the moment plans stall, the moment effort does not immediately translate into results, doubt begins its quiet work. Maybe this is not meant for me. Maybe I am not capable. Maybe I should stop.
But think about that carefully.
Why would growth always announce itself with comfort? Why would transformation feel pleasant? Why would preparation resemble convenience? Some of the most important changes in your life will not feel like blessings at first. They will feel like interruptions. They will feel like detours. They will feel like life ignoring your timetable. And if you judge them purely by emotion, you will mislabel something that was never meant to harm you. A difficult season does not mean you are losing. A confusing season does not mean you are failing. An uncomfortable season does not mean you are being denied. Sometimes it simply means you are being worked on. The problem is not the season itself. The problem is the interpretation. When something does not match your expectations, you instinctively resist it. You fight it. You complain about it. You try to escape it. Yet what you are resisting may be the very process shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, more resilient than you have ever been. Look at your own life for a moment. The experiences that taught you the most, were they always easy? The moments that made you grow, were they always pleasant? The lessons that changed you, did they arrive wrapped in comfort? Rarely. Strength is rarely born from ease. Clarity is rarely born from certainty. Maturity is rarely born from convenience. They are forged in the moments you wish would end quickly. They are built in the chapters you struggle to understand while you are living them. And here is something even more revealing. Many seasons feel difficult not because they are destroying you, but because they are challenging your illusions. They are forcing you to confront reality. They are exposing weaknesses you did not know you carried. They are stretching patience you did not know you lacked. That stretching, that pressure, that friction, it feels uncomfortable precisely because growth is taking place. But discomfort is not always danger. Difficulty is not always defeat. There is a quiet danger in assuming that anything hard must be wrong. That assumption alone has caused countless people to abandon journeys that were leading exactly where they needed to go. They walked away not because the path was incorrect, but because the process was misunderstood. Not every hard season is an obstacle. Some are training. Not every frustration is destruction. Some are construction happening out of sight. If you can begin to see your season differently, everything changes. The weight feels lighter. The struggle feels purposeful. The waiting feels tolerable because now you are no longer asking, why is this happening to me? Now you are asking, what is this preparing me for? That question transforms your power. That question turns endurance into strength. So when you find yourself standing in a season you do not like, instead of immediately labeling it as misfortune, pause, look deeper, challenge your first reaction. Because what appears to be an interruption may actually be an invitation to grow, to strengthen, to evolve. Pressure has a strange way of entering your life. It does not knock politely. It does not ask for permission. It arrives unannounced, settles into your routine, and suddenly everything feels heavier. Decisions feel harder, emotions feel louder, doubts feel closer. And in those moments, most people focus on one thing only: escape. How do I get out of this? How do I make this stop? Why is this happening now? But pressure is not just weight, pressure is revelation. When life is comfortable, you can hide from yourself. You can move through your days believing you are disciplined, believing you are mentally strong. It is easy to feel confident when nothing is challenging you. It is easy to feel steady when nothing is shaking you. Comfort allows illusions to survive. Pressure destroys illusions. That is why it feels so unsettling. Because under pressure, you meet the unfiltered version of yourself. Your habits are no longer theoretical, they are exposed. Your mindset is no longer imagined, it is tested. Your emotional control is no longer assumed, it is revealed in real time. Pressure has a way of asking questions you cannot ignore. How do you respond when things do not go your way? How do you behave when progress slows down? How do you think when uncertainty stretches longer than expected? Do you remain composed or do you panic? Do you stay focused or do you crumble into distraction? Do you adapt or do you freeze? These are not small questions. These are identity questions. And many people are surprised by the answers, not because they lack potential, but because they have never been placed in situations that required their deeper strength. You do not truly know your patience until something tries it. You do not truly know your resilience until something challenges it. You do not truly know your discipline until something makes quitting feel reasonable. Pressure forces honesty. It removes the luxury of self deception. It shows you the gap between who you believe you are and how you actually perform when conditions are unfavorable. Now, here is the part most people misunderstand. They interpret this revelation as failure. They experience discomfort and assume weakness. They feel internal struggle and conclude they are not. Being strong enough but seeing your limitations is not defeat, it is awareness. And awareness is the beginning of growth. You cannot strengthen what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot improve what you refuse to see. Pressure is often the mechanism that makes self discovery unavoidable. It is life saying, look closer, not to shame you, but to sharpen you. Because once pressure exposes your reactions, you are given something incredibly valuable: choice. You can continue operating from old habits, old fears, old patterns, or you can begin adjusting, refining, strengthening. Without pressure, that choice rarely becomes urgent. With pressure, transformation becomes necessary. Think about it. If nothing ever tested your emotional stability, how would you develop composure? If nothing ever challenged your persistence, how would you build endurance? If nothing ever stretched your patience, how would you expand your tolerance for difficulty? Pressure is not random cruelty. It is often targeted refinement. And yes, it is uncomfortable. Growth always is. But discomfort does not mean damage is occurring. Often it means adaptation is occurring. Muscles burn when they grow, minds strain when they expand. Character feels stress when it is being strengthened. The sensation of pressure is not proof that you are breaking, it may be proof that you are being built beyond your previous limits. What matters is not the presence of pressure. What matters is your interpretation of it. If you see pressure as an enemy, you resist it, fear it, resent it. Every challenge feels personal. Every difficulty feels unfair. But if you begin to see pressure as a mirror, something remarkable happens. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is this showing me about myself? That shift changes everything because now pressure becomes information. Now difficulty becomes feedback. Now struggle becomes instruction. You start observing your reactions rather than being controlled by them. You start noticing your thought patterns rather than being overwhelmed by them. You start recognizing where growth is required instead of assuming you are simply unlucky. And this is where strength is truly formed, not in the absence of pressure, but in the intelligent response to it. Pressure reveals identity, yes, but it also offers opportunity, an opportunity to evolve beyond automatic reactions, an opportunity to develop stability where instability once lived, an opportunity to become someone who is not easily shaken by circumstances. So if life feels intense right now, if demands feel heavy, if challenges feel relentless, understand what may actually be happening. You may not be facing destruction. You may be standing in a moment of revelation, a moment where your habits, your mindset, your inner world are being brought into clarity. And clarity, though uncomfortable, is a powerful gift. Waiting tests people in ways failure never could. Failure is loud, dramatic, visible. You know when you have failed. The world knows when you have failed. But waiting is quiet. It stretches time. It plays with your expectations. It sits with you day after day, whispering questions into your mind that are far more dangerous than obstacles. Why is nothing happening? Did I take the wrong path? Have I been forgotten? There is a particular kind of frustration that comes from doing the work, making the effort, showing up consistently, and still seeing no immediate result. Something has not happened yet. It will not happen at all. We assume that because doors have not opened, they're permanently closed. We assume that delay equals rejection. But life does not always operate on the timelines we create. In fact, it rarely does. Timing is one of the most misunderstood forces in human experience. We measure it through impatience, through comparison, through expectation. Yet many things in life are not withheld because they are impossible. They are withheld because they are premature. There is a difference between not now and not ever. And confusing the two leads to unnecessary despair. Consider how often people quit not at the beginning of a journey, but in the middle of waiting. Not when effort is required, but when patience is required. Effort feels active, productive, visible. Patience feels passive, uncertain, uncomfortable. Yet patience is often the very skill that determines whether effort ever produces its reward. What if the delay is not preventing your progress, but protecting it? What if the waiting period is not empty, but essential? What if life is not denying you, but aligning you? These are not comforting fantasies. They are observable patterns. Many opportunities demand a version of you that only time and experience can create. Responsibility without maturity becomes disaster. Success without stability becomes self-sabotage. Achievement without preparation becomes pressure you cannot sustain. Sometimes the waiting is not about the goal. It is about the person pursuing it. Growth continues even when visible progress appears to stall. Your judgment sharpens, your emotional endurance expands, your priorities clarify, your discipline stabilizes. But because these changes happen internally, silently, gradually, they are often dismissed as nothing happening. Yet internal preparation is still preparation. And preparation is never wasted. Impatience, however, distorts perception. It convinces you that movement must be visible to be real. It convinces you that speed equals success. It convinces you that those who advance quickly are automatically ahead. But every journey has its own timing, its own sequencing, its own unseen requirements. Comparison only amplifies dissatisfaction because you are measuring your invisible process against someone else's visible moment. Delay is not a verdict, it is a phase, and phases serve purposes we do not always recognize in real time. Think of how many things in life require incubation, skills, confidence, wisdom, emotional control. None of these develop instantly. None of these appear on command. They are built through repetition, reflection, correction, and time. Why should larger outcomes, careers, achievements, transformations obey a different rule? Waiting is not inactivity. Waiting is often construction happening beneath the surface. But here is the challenge: uncertainty magnifies doubt. The longer you wait, the louder your fears become. The quieter the external validation, the more aggressively your mind questions your direction. This is where many people surrender, not because the path is wrong, but because the silence becomes unbearable. Yet silence is not always absence. Delay is not always denial. Lack of immediate evidence is not proof of impossibility. Some outcomes require alignment of circumstances you cannot see, variables you cannot control, timing you cannot accelerate. Forcing them prematurely may not produce success. It may produce instability. What feels like life slowing you down may actually be life preventing collapse you would not have anticipated. There is wisdom in timing. There is protection in preparation. There is value in patience.
And those who understand this do not experience waiting.
The same way, they do not interpret delay as defeat. They use the time. They strengthen themselves. They refine their craft. They stabilize their mindset. They continue moving, even when movement feels slow, because they recognize something crucial. Readiness matters more than speed. So if you find yourself in a season where effort is present but results feel distant, resist the temptation to declare failure. Resist the urge to assume rejection. Resist the destructive habit of measuring progress only by visible milestones.
You may not be stuck.
You may be in alignment. You may not be denied. You may be in preparation. And one day, what feels like an unbearable delay may reveal itself as perfect timing. There is a truth about strength that many people resist because it contradicts comfort. Everyone wants to be strong. Everyone admires resilience. Everyone respects the person who remains steady under pressure, who stands firm in chaos, who does not crumble when life becomes demanding. But very few people truly accept how that strength is created. Strength is not gifted. Strength is built, and it is built in resistance, not in ease, not in convenience, not in moments when everything cooperates with your desires. Real strength emerges when conditions are unfavorable, when progress is difficult, when continuing requires more from you than you feel ready to give. That is where resilience is formed, not when things are smooth, but when things are hard. Consider how the body works. Muscles do not grow when they are comfortable. They grow when they are challenged, when they are forced to push against weight, when they experience strain. Remove resistance and growth stops. The same principle governs the mind, the character, the emotional world. Without challenge, there is no expansion. Without difficulty, there is no deepening of capacity. Yet when resistance appears in life, people react as though something has gone wrong. They interpret difficulty as misfortune. They interpret hardship as evidence that they are losing. But resistance is not always an enemy. Often it is the mechanism of development. Life applies pressure not merely to test endurance, but to increase it. Every challenge stretches your limits. Every obstacle demands adaptation. Every period of difficulty forces you to access patience, creativity, persistence, emotional control. These qualities do not materialize automatically. They are developed through repeated exposure to situations that require them. No resistance, no refinement, no difficulty, no durability, no struggle, no strength. What you call a hard season may actually be a training ground, a space where your tolerance for uncertainty expands, a space where your discipline stabilizes, a space where your reactions are sharpened, your focus clarified, your inner stability reinforced. But because this process feels uncomfortable, because it demands energy, because it challenges your preferences, it is often misinterpreted as unnecessary suffering. Comfort seduces, resistance strengthens, and the two rarely coexist. Think about the individuals who display extraordinary composure, extraordinary mental toughness, extraordinary persistence. Those qualities were not born from uninterrupted ease. They were forged through difficulty, through setbacks, through moments that required continuing despite exhaustion, despite doubt, despite fear. Resilience is a consequence of repeated confrontation with challenge. Endurance is a consequence of surviving discomfort. Stability is a consequence of navigating uncertainty. There is no shortcut around this process. Avoiding resistance may preserve temporary comfort, but it weakens long term capacity. Every time you retreat from difficulty, every time you abandon effort at the first sign of struggle, you reinforce fragility. You teach yourself that discomfort is intolerable, that challenge is threatening, that persistence is optional. But leaning into resistance, that changes you. When you continue despite difficulty, something subtle but powerful occurs. Your confidence shifts from external conditions to internal capability. You stop needing life to be easy in order to feel steady. You stop requiring certainty in order to move forward. You develop a quiet assurance that you can handle pressure because you have handled it before. That is strength, not the absence of challenge, but the ability to function within it. Resistance also reveals possibilities you would never discover in comfort. Creativity emerges when easy solutions fail. Patience expands when immediate results disappear. Focus sharpens when distractions become costly. Challenge has a way of activating capacities that remain dormant when life is effortless. Many of your greatest internal upgrades will be triggered by difficulty, not ease. This is why hard seasons, though unpleasant, are often invaluable. They build psychological endurance. They deepen emotional control. They cultivate persistence that survives beyond motivation. Motivation fluctuates, circumstances change. But resilience, once built, remains. And here lies the critical distinction. Resistance does not weaken you by default. Resistance strengthens you by design, but only if you engage with it, only if you refuse to interpret difficulty as defeat. Only if you recognize that growth and discomfort are inseparable companions. So when life feels demanding, when progress feels heavier than expected, remember what may actually be happening. You may not be facing obstruction. You may be undergoing expansion. Raw capacity may be increasing. Your endurance may be deepening. Your stability may be solidifying in ways that will serve you long after the season has passed. Strength is not measured by how you perform when everything is easy. Strength is revealed by how you respond when everything is not. One of the most dangerous moments in any difficult season is not the obstacle itself, not the delay, not even the pressure. It is the story you begin telling yourself about what those things mean. Human beings do not respond to reality alone. They respond to their interpretation of reality. And that interpretation, when distorted, can quietly dismantle determination, confidence, and hope. When challenges appear, the mind rushes to assign meaning. It rarely waits for evidence. It rarely pauses for clarity. Then it reacts. This is going wrong. This should not be happening. Something must be broken. And once that narrative takes hold, every experience is filtered through it. Difficulty stops being a temporary condition and starts feeling like a permanent verdict. That is the danger, because misinterpretation changes behavior. If you believe you are being defeated, your energy shifts. If you believe your effort is pointless, your persistence weakens. If you believe the season is proof of your inadequacy, your confidence erodes. Nothing external needs to worsen. The internal narrative alone is enough to alter your trajectory. Consider how easily the mind confuses discomfort with failure. Progress is imagined as smooth, linear, predictable. So when reality delivers friction, uncertainty, and setbacks, many assume they have strayed from the correct path. They do not see challenge as part of growth. They see challenge as evidence against it. Yet difficulty and progress are not opposites. They are often companions, but mislabeling difficulty as defeat creates emotional exhaust. Irritation that has nothing to do with actual capability. You are no longer just dealing with circumstances. You are battling the psychological weight of believing those circumstances signify something catastrophic. The obstacle remains the same size, but your perception magnifies it. Misinterpretation also fuels comparison, which further distorts judgment. You look outward, you observe others moving faster, achieving sooner, appearing more stable. And without understanding their full journey, without seeing their struggles, their delays, their invisible battles, you conclude that your own difficulties indicate personal failure. But visible progress is not complete reality. Every journey contains hidden chapters. Every success has unseen preparation. Every apparent ease has invisible effort behind it. Comparison without context breeds discouragement, and discouragement, when reinforced by faulty interpretation, becomes a powerful force. It convinces capable individuals to withdraw, to hesitate, to abandon pursuits, not because success is unattainable, but because the process feels incorrectly labeled as evidence of futility. This is how potential is quietly buried, not by inability, but by perception, not by reality, but by interpretation. The mind, when left unexamined, tends toward negative conclusions during uncertainty. It seeks immediate explanations, and the easiest explanation is often the most pessimistic one. It is not working. It is too late. Others are ahead. This is pointless. These thoughts feel like observations wearing the mask of certainty, and assumptions shape decisions. Decisions shape outcomes. If you treat temporary difficulty as permanent failure, you will respond prematurely. You will stop when patience is required. You will surrender when endurance is required. The tragedy is not that the path was impossible, it is that the conclusion was reached too early. Perspective is not motivational decoration. It is strategic necessity. Seeing clearly during hardship is a skill, and like any skill, it requires deliberate practice. It requires questioning automatic thoughts. It requires resisting the urge to treat emotion as fact. It requires recognizing that struggle does not inherently carry negative meaning. A demanding season may signal growth. A slow period may signal preparation. A difficult phase may signal refinement. Meaning is not always obvious in real time, but misassigning meaning can be catastrophic. Those who navigate difficulty effectively are not immune to doubt. They are not untouched by uncertainty, but they possess a crucial discipline. They do not immediately accept the mind's most pessimistic interpretation. They pause, they observe, they consider alternative explanations. They understand that feelings, though powerful, are not definitive evidence. They separate experience from conclusion, and that separation preserves resilience. Because once you recognize that hardship does not automatically equal defeat, something shifts. It challenges become information rather than condemnation. Delays become phases rather than verdicts. Obstacles become problems to navigate rather than signals to surrender. Your energy stabilizes, your judgment clarifies, your endurance strengthens. Misinterpretation thrives in haste, in fear, in comparison, in unchecked emotion, but clarity thrives in patience, in disciplined thinking. And clarity is often the difference between those who abandon meaningful pursuits and those who persist long enough to see transformation unfold. So when you encounter difficulty, be careful not to confuse sensation with significance. Be careful not to mistake temporary struggle for permanent failure. Be careful not to let the mind's first reaction dictate your final conclusion, because the greatest damage hardship can inflict It's not always external. It is the internal belief that you have already lost. Guard your perspective. Question your assumptions. Refuse premature conclusions. There is something profoundly unsettling about progress you cannot see. Human beings are wired for evidence. We like signs, signals, visible confirmation that our effort is producing results. We want movement we can measure, improvement we can point to, change we can prove. When that evidence is absent, when days pass and nothing appears different, doubt begins to creep in with quiet persistence. Is anything actually happening? Am I moving forward at all? Or am I just standing still? But growth does not always announce itself through dramatic external change. In fact, some of the most important transformations occur in ways that are almost invisible while they are happening. They take place beneath the surface, gradually, subtly, without spectacle. And because they lack immediate visibility, they are often mistaken for stagnation. Yet absence of visibility is not absence of progress. Consider how many processes in life unfold silently. A seed beneath the soil does not display its activity. From the outside, it appears inactive, unchanged, buried. But beneath the surface, essential work is taking place. Roots are forming. Structures are developing. Foundations are being established for growth that will later become visible. Judging the seed's progress by what you see above ground would lead to an entirely false conclusion. Human development follows a similar pattern. Internal change rarely produces instant external drama. Your mindset adjusts quietly. Your tolerance for difficulty increases subtly. Your emotional control strengthens gradually. Your perspective evolves in small increments. Day to day, these shifts may feel insignificant. You may not wake up one morning feeling radically different. You may not observe sudden, undeniable transformation, but that does not mean nothing is happening. It means the work is occurring where it matters most. We underestimate slow change because it lacks theatrical impact. We expect growth to feel explosive, obvious, unmistakable. But sustainable transformation is often incremental. It is built through repeated experiences, repeated reflections, repeated challenges that reshape you piece by piece. The change is real, but the pace deceives perception. This is where impatience becomes dangerous. When you rely solely on visible proof, you risk abandoning processes that are actively strengthening you. You interpret quiet periods as unproductive. You mislabel subtle progress as absence. You conclude that because nothing dramatic is happening externally, nothing meaningful is happening at all. But internal upgrades are still upgrades. Invisible refinement is still refinement. Silent growth is still growth. Think about the ways you evolve without immediately noticing. The challenges you handle today that once overwhelmed you, the uncertainties you tolerate now that once caused anxiety, the patience you display now that once seemed impossible. These changes did not arrive overnight. They accumulated, they developed gradually, often without your conscious awareness. Only hindsight revealed their magnitude. Yet during the process, it likely felt slow, ambiguous, perhaps even frustrating. There is also a psychological reason invisible growth feels uncomfortable. Effort without immediate reward tests belief. It demands trust in processes you cannot measure. It requires continuing despite lack of obvious reinforcement. Many up, struggle, not because growth is absent, but because growth is silent. Silence invites doubt. Visibility reassures. But silence does not imply failure. Often, it implies preparation. The most stable forms of progress are frequently constructed internally before they manifest externally. Confidence strengthens before opportunity expands. Discipline stabilizes before responsibility increases. Clarity develops before direction becomes obvious. These internal shifts create the capacity required for future outcomes. Without them, rapid external change may become unsustainable. They are rarely appreciated in real time. Another distortion arises from comparison. Observing others display visible achievements can intensify the illusion that your own progress is non existent. But you are comparing your internal process to someone else's external moment. You are measuring unseen development against visible results. That comparison is inherently flawed. Every visible outcome rests on invisible preparation. Every apparent leap rests on gradual construction. Every breakthrough rests on silent growth. The timeline of visibility does not define the reality of progress. What matters is not whether growth is visible. What matters is whether growth is occurring, and growth often continues long before recognition arrives. So when you find yourself in seasons that feel quiet, slow, uneventful, resist the temptation to declare stagnation, resist the impulse to assume that lack of dramatic change equals lack of meaningful development. Look deeper, observe more carefully. Recognize that transformation is frequently subtle while it is happening and obvious only in retrospect. Progress is not always loud. Change is not always visible, but invisibility does not diminish reality. It merely challenges. The S, patience. And patience is often the very quality that silent seasons are designed to strengthen. Trust the process you cannot yet see. Continue the effort you cannot yet measure. There is a pattern in life that many people only recognize after years of experience, after enough victories and setbacks, after enough moments of clarity and regret. It is a pattern that governs growth, responsibility, opportunity, and timing. And once you truly understand it, your entire relationship with difficulty begins to change. Preparation always comes before elevation, not sometimes, not occasionally, always. Yet while living through the preparation phase, it rarely feels noble or purposeful. It feels slow. It feels demanding. It feels like life is asking for effort without providing immediate reward. You work, you struggle, you endure, you adapt, and often you wonder why progress is not arriving as quickly as you expected. But elevation without preparation is not a blessing, it is instability waiting to happen. Imagine being handed enormous responsibility without the judgment to manage it. Imagine receiving success without the discipline to sustain it. Imagine gaining influence without the emotional control to handle pressure. What appears desirable in theory can become overwhelming, even destructive, without the internal capacity to support it. Life is not merely concerned with giving you what you want. Life is concerned with ensuring you can handle what you receive. And capacity is built long before opportunity expands. This is why challenging seasons often precede significant breakthroughs, not because difficulty guarantees success, but because growth is required to stabilize success. The qualities demanded at higher levels, resilience, patience, clarity, emotional control, discipline, are rarely formed in comfort. They are forged through friction, through uncertainty, through moments that stretch your current limits. Preparation does not feel like reward. It feels like repetition. It feels like struggle. But hidden within those experiences is the construction of stability. You are being shaped into someone who can carry more, handle more, sustain more. Every challenge builds psychological endurance. Every delay strengthens patience. Every obstacle sharpens adaptability. These are not incidental hardships. They are structural reinforcements. Without them, elevation collapses. Many people focus intensely on outcomes while overlooking capacity. They crave the next level, the next opportunity, the next breakthrough, yet underestimate the internal upgrades required to navigate those realities successfully. When progress feels slow, frustration emerges. When effort feels relentless, doubt appears. But what is perceived as obstruction may actually be calibration life expanding your capability before expanding your circumstances. Consider how often premature success leads to self sabotage. Without preparation, pressure becomes unbearable. Without discipline, freedom becomes distraction. Without clarity, opportunity becomes confusion. External advancement magnifies internal weaknesses. What you have not strengthened will be exposed. Preparation protects you from that exposure. Preparation is not delay for delay's sake. Preparation is reinforcement, and reinforcement takes time. This process also explains why different journeys unfold at different speeds. Capacity varies, readiness varies, development varies. Comparing timelines becomes meaningless when each individual is undergoing unique forms of refinement. Some lessons require longer seasons. Now, some strengths require deeper testing. Some mindsets require greater reshaping. Speed does not define readiness. Readiness defines sustainability, and sustainability determines longevity. The discomfort of preparation arises from its demands. It requires persistence without applause. It requires effort without immediate validation. Patience deepens when waiting stretches longer than expected. Resilience strengthens when obstacles refuse easy solutions. Focus sharpens when distractions threaten progress. Emotional control stabilizes when frustration intensifies. These qualities are not developed accidentally. They emerge from repeated confrontation with challenge. Preparation is not passive, it is active internal construction, even when external results appear modest. Elevation, when it arrives, often appears sudden, but preparation is always gradual, invisible, demanding, and absolutely essential. So when life feels like it is asking more from you than it is giving, consider the possibility that something crucial is taking place. You may not be stuck. You may be strengthening. You may not be delayed. You may be reinforced. You may not be denied. You may be undergoing expansion of capacity, because when greater responsibility, greater opportunity, greater challenges arrive, and they will, the version of you that emerges from preparation will determine whether those moments become breakthroughs or burdens. Preparation is not punishment. Preparation is protection. Preparation is construction of the person who can sustain elevation. Trust that process. Respect that timing. Embrace that refinement. Because what feels like an uphill battle today may be building the strength that makes tomorrow's opportunities not just attainable, but manageable. Stay committed. You are being readied for more.